you fine.
Yep.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to Wireless Wednesday, our usual 30-minute slot, which we do every week. Go through the topics of the news and what we're doing, I guess, on a local level as well, what we've been interested in. I guess whilst we wait for Andy and Christian to sort the technical issues out, I'll just mention that we have another trial at a different location with the Network on Wheels this weekend. We're going to be doing two events, so at the same time. And they're about 45 minutes away from each other. So there's going to be no opportunity to utilize one system. So let's recap. We started off with Network on Wheels with one Land Rover. And a few trial customers on a site, enabling payments for traders. We then moved on to a couple of Land Rovers with radios on them, routers, and then providing Wi-Fi solutions where there are Faraday cages effectively within heavy plant machinery where Wi-Fi couldn't reach, and we put routers in there, backhauls from 5G via satellite, as you know, using our own platform. And that was all successful. We ran a trial overnight for some VIPs. That was successful. And our next one's a different location, so it's more urban rather than a showground, which presents different challenges. People, again, will be staying overnight. It's in a town by a river. Rivers themselves, as you may well know, present their own challenges, and we will be doing a couple of days for that. And again, in the evening, which is slightly new for us, we shouldn't present any technical difficulties, frankly. Again, prioritizing VIPs and traders for connectivity that have historically struggled with this 10-year-old event, and they have. They have had to produce their own solutions. So we are going to give them a single solution, which will be an interesting departure. So we're becoming more complex very rapidly. A lot of the stuff that we were testing in the initial phases are now business as usual. But that gives you an update on where we are from a trials point of view. We've got a workshop now fully up and running. Just the process of putting fiber in there, so we can do a lot of testing again in another different type of rural environment, and basically that gives us the ability to build these vehicles, such as Land Rover conversions, and also more importantly. Electric powered vehicles, e-cargo bikes, which have much more flexibility even than a Land Rover, believe it or not, in getting in and out of rural locations. So that is all good. And welcome, Andy and Christian.
Yeah, never try with a new device.
There you go.
For some reason, permissions. But anyway, shall we kick off with the news?
Why not?
There's lots of exciting news this week. I suppose the first two, we haven't heard the word AI for a while.
It's gone very quiet, isn't it?
So on the one hand, if we get it, which mobile company was reporting?
It was Google. It was actually on the radio news this morning that Google had the power consumption has increased by 40% over the last few years, and they're putting it down to the amount of AI that is used. And they're having to expand their data centers and expand the equipment that's in them, of course, and they're all power hungry. So hardly a green solution. Yeah?
At the same time, they've announced the Google 9, the Pixel 9, will have more AI built in. So we've gone all this way to kind of make devices a little bit more green by making them recyclable. And now we're going all the way back because somebody wants to be able to say, make me a picture of a horse running in the sand of a beach with a warthog behind it, which is, I think, what most people use AI for. I don't know, apart from
I would have no idea.
Apart from doing the homework, And
maybe AI could make England play football better, Carl. What do you think? Anyway,
No chance. It's got its limits.
yeah, the eye is going to be the problem there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Than anything else. So yeah, it's this full circle thing, isn't it? AI is fantastic if you use it wisely. Well, it's like any resource in the world, isn't it? It's like electricity. It's great if you're using it to light your way, but if you're floodlighting every room in the house whilst you're sat in one of them, then it's a bit silly. And I think this is one of the key things that we're seeing all over, right? I mean, there's some AI that we can do, even the stuff that we do in the networks. You can run some of it on a little Raspberry Pi, on a little ARM device locally, or you can stick in a massive server, send it all back to a data center, massively process it, and send it all the way back.
Yep.
And you've used gigaflops instead of megahertz.
Which is right.
Anyway, so then we shall see what happens with AI. It's at some point now expecting the news article to go, net zero is cancelled because of AI. And then everyone will just go, oh, well, we may as well go back to our big V8s, and then and we may as well leave all the lights on again. And at that point, anyway,
could be, couldn't
it? I do get a feeling that though with AI that a lot of the announcements that come out are announcements for the sake of announcements. I know the Google Pixel 9 is probably doesn't fall into that category. It does bring some new technology, but we saw this Mobile World Congress. It was a buzzword. It seems, as you say, it seems to have died down a while, and we're getting, as people in the media industry will tell you, we're getting to the silly season. There's not a lot of announcements coming out, so I would think over the next couple of months there'll be a plethora of these announcements to come out with not quite a lot of substance behind them, if I was honest. I mean, I might be wrong, but don't know what you guys.
I've noticed that now. I mean, CES was like, there was even AI. I mean, some of the things were ridiculous. It's like fridge. It's an AI fridge. New TV. There was even AI TVs, and I was just like, how the hell is this AI? It's not even.
No,
I mean,
it's just part of a smart home, isn't it, or something like that?
And then MWC was AI everything.
Yeah.
And now we seem to have a lack of AI. But of course, that's what happens at the beginning of the year. Everything 2024 will be the year of AI. 6 months later, it's not quite ready yet. By about September, we'll be revving up for AI for CES. Anyway, well, we are on a farm in a barn. AIAIO.
Yep.
Sorry.
In one of the 5G radio Land Rovers.
I know. You can see a mast is behind
my ear here.
Yep. I haven't turned the mirror on this.
But interestingly, there was another news article today. The MNOs are pondering how on earth they can monetize 5G. After their huge investments in spectrum and licenses and things like that, there is filtered a rumor that they're not quite sure how they're going to get the money back.
But does this, I mean, call me cynical, but has this got anything to do with the fact that 5G is only in dense urban areas and not in rural coverage?
Well, it could be.
And they're being asked to cover wider, and they're going, oh, no. Because which country was it you had an article as well?
Well, there's a couple of things building on that. I guess one of the disadvantages for, I won't call them third world countries, but countries that lag behind in terms of the investment, is they get to look what it was always Sony's strategy to get to look what the market's done and fix the problems that are in there. But Indonesia has announced that the network operators there, which from memory they had 4 or 5, I think it's 4, are not investing in 5G anything like they were committed to do, purely and simply because they don't see the business cases for this is to build on Andy's point. And the Philippines has rolled out, they've got decent urban centres, as has Indonesia. But they've come out with their investments are going into satellite phone technology and basically stuff that we're doing because you've got large land masses with lots of areas with no coverage. So they need to sort that out for flash events and that kind of stuff. So Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. They explicitly came out and said, "We just don't see the ROI. So why are we going to do it?"
It's yeah. I mean, we've been seeing this, haven't we? I mean, there's even the mobile side of it is only half of it. Even just to give you an idea, if you're going to cover an area and you needed, and this is exactly how when you're rolling out a network for a country, or when a country is evaluating who's going to win the licenses, you do a bid like we've done. For example, the last one we did was for Mexico, and people would say, right, for us to put 4G at the time across Mexico, we'll need 17,000 base stations, and we'll put them here, and this will be the cost, and X base stations. And the same happens with a small network, right?
Yes.
You know, we go somewhere and they say, to cover this site properly, you will need 10 base stations. And what you realize is those 10 base stations will probably still not be enough for peak demand everywhere, and they're going to be quite expensive. However, you can get away with half of those and then just mobile ones when you need them.
Yep.
If you're in somewhere like where we've been in the showground, where they have something like about 50 events a year. But if you're in a place like we're going this weekend to a music festival and to an animal show, then you can't really, the only thing you can justify is a mobile one, right?
Yep.
And
makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
but once you've got that, the benefits are amazing, right? So you monetize it for the event of the year, but then you have it, you know, potentially the ways that is funded means that you don't have access to it for the harvest. You have access to it for other events, and yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And I think we've been missing a trick all these decades, really.
Well, there is, because okay, I know we're doing it with 5G. It's the latest technology, but there was never ever a backward solution for 4G for this, was there? You know, there was no 4G networks on wheels.
There are.
Was it?
Yeah. So I suppose it's been mostly an evolution thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, obviously they're getting smaller.
Yeah.
So by the time we are now, obviously small cells have only existed, I think that's where you're going, have only existed really for the last few years. I just so happen to have a 4G one back there. It is smaller. It's a lot smaller, a lot lighter, but obviously I think it doesn't do that. It's not that bad actually with the throughput or the range, but it's an indoor one rather than an outdoor one.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is.
I don't think the networks are sitting back on this business case point that Andy raised, because I think it's an important one. I mean, I think yesterday was announced 4 of the big global operators based in Europe, Vodafone and Deutsche were 2 of them. I think Telefonica was another. That they're going to collaborate with Open RAN for the network slicing and dicing and all that kind of good funky stuff. But those guys, you know, if they wouldn't be doing that, if with there's the obvious logistics or the supplier issues, but they wouldn't be doing that if they feel they have all the tools they needed at the moment to monetize it. And quite frankly, they don't. They do, you know, as we've said before, to quickly reiterate a point, 5G is just faster stuff for consumers. It's not revolutionary. It's on the E2E side. So I get the approach on Open RAN, I get the approach on network slicing, and I get the approach on private networks. You know, there's a new private network announced probably every other day at the moment, and at scale. But that doesn't seem to be enough.
No. Yeah, it's it is. I think what they've just been doing is getting away with not covering anywhere other than dense urban, but it's not even dense urban areas. I think this project has been a massive eye opener to me to just how bad coverage is in the UK. But anyway, talking of coverage, one thing that does work when you don't have coverage is NFC payments, and there is a new NFC forum standard that will let you do NFC 2, NFC squared. We'll even let you do things like check your age, check vouchers, things like that. it's all quite exciting. It'll just bring the question of one of the things I do love about NFC is that it does actually work when you don't have any coverage. You can actually pay for things.
Yes.
Certain things, I mean, not big things, but you can pay for the contact stuff like a coffee or whatever. And I don't know if you will be able to when the next level comes in. But I did one thing I thought was amazing is obviously when we're doing this. So we've spent, and I think this brings me full circle, and let me come back to this. But one of the things I did realize when we went to one of the showgrounds and showed the 5G, I remember a moment when we literally just placed the radio on the back of the Land Rover, not even on a mast, and we covered the whole area. There was a look of one of the people there saying, so I've been digging up this field and laying Wi-Fi for the last 10 years. And I could have just done this. And yeah, we've just put some proper cables between 14 meters between one barn and another barn to stop us having to do it overhead. And we went, how hard can it be to just dig a channel and put it in? Well, I can tell you, 2 weeks later, 6 tons of bird poo.
Yeah, and a trench across concrete as well. It was hard digging.
Yeah, well,
it's not a straightforward.
It was hard watching someone dig it in the sun last week.
Yes.
About this time last week, when we were doing this in the sun rather than inside. If you think there's funny lighting, it's because we're actually inside the barn, and that blue light enables us to build things late until the night for the world. But yeah, coming back to it is it just makes you realize how important it is to have wireless coverage, because it's I mean, quite frankly, we could have just put the 5G antenna on that building where we've just brought the cable through, saved ourselves 2 weeks. But yeah, the payments is what made me realize this, and I'm coming back and I've actually managed to keep the thread, is we needed more conduit, because of course you can't just put a cable in the ground, it needs to go through conduit. And I went to Toolstation, and Toolstation actually sell the sum up those payment things that were sort of working,
little
not
handheld terminals. Yes,
they were selling them there for, I don't know, 49, 59, 99 pounds. Pick one up from the front, lets you take payments, but they're all 3G, which probably explains why.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Probably explains why
they don't work now.
The people who are using them are walking around like hoping it'll get a signal.
No 3G coverage anymore.
No. I mean, good luck getting a 3G signal in the middle of nowhere these days. So then another thing. So I don't know how the generations are changing, but I have a just teenager, and I read a few articles, and now more and more articles, even one in the Guardian, which basically says children should be child-free until the age of, and insert your age. Some of them say just 11. Some of them say even as late as 16. And I don't know whether this is just, I mean, I remember when I was growing up, computer games were the worst thing in the world. Obviously, I reprogrammed some of my father's company's quality assurance programs from Fortran to Basic, so people could use them at home, and everyone turned around saying, why would I want to work at home? But you wait. It just seems a little bit strange, doesn't it? That.
Well, I think that we've had since COVID as well. We've had a complete mind shift, haven't we, in the way people work? People do work more from home now. Gone are the days when you were in the office 9 to 5 or 9 to 5:30, and that was 5 days a week, and it was regimented. These days, the emphasis is on flexible working, so therefore, you need more coverage, more bandwidth away from the main city centres and the main, what we would traditionally call the main city centres.
Well, yeah, but I don't know whether it's sort of which way around it came. I mean, obviously, this generation seemed to be a little bit more all over the place, but I honestly don't think there's two things to this. I think one of the things that's terrible is when you see like parents having dinner in a restaurant night after night in places, and kids, here's an iPad, shut up. But at the same time, I've been in places like Korea where I've seen, we had to put software on laptops and phones to stop 6-year-olds reprogramming them. And we were told that computers were going to completely break us, and I only consider myself part broken.
All right.
Not fully broken, and it kept me from poking animals with sticks, which is probably what my parents' generation did instead.
Reminiscing backwards, I remember being told in the year 2000, this millennium, when we were all night waiting for the networks to crash and things like that, the language that would be the common language of the internet in the 2000s going forward will be Chinese. It was forecast to be the dominant language for use in the internet.
And you can tell that's somebody who's never programmed anything in their life or realized that non-ASCII characters and programming is a bit like processed food and gourmet. It's it ain't happening. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm conflicted. I would like people's opinion. Every time I get asked for more screen time for TikTok, part of me sees my daughter just sat there going, and the other side goes, well, she knows how to do things on a laptop that other generations keep having to Google.
Yeah. What, like us, mean, or like me?
No, I think you're. I think you're definitely not in that camp. But there are people who need help for doing anything on a computer, and ultimately, the other side of that, I think, is will that generation be less likely to fall for internet pranks? And
no, I think they'll become more sophisticated. Unfortunately, the hoaxers, pranksters, and the criminal elements are intelligent, and they'll always be one step ahead. So it doesn't matter who they decide to target. The Generation Z this month or this year.
What was door-to-door salesman?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm sure some of those silly dances that people do on TikTok are actually part of some scam. They're scamming people into being more
Buying
stupid, and then they will pounce on them. So yeah, NFC, AI. I wonder if AI can be trained to stop. I suppose it can be, can't it?
Don't stop forward. Could be. Could it or not?
I don't know. Well, I get a lot of emails that say, "Is this phishing? Is this?" And I have to click it's safe. Doesn't seem to necessarily learn as we're going along. We shall see. So then there was another article that you had, Carl, on was it on 5G? Let me have a look.
Yes, there's one in terms of, again, relative to us, and I guess the UK. We've got a lot of rural spots. We've got a lot of dense urban.
Yeah.
Dense urban. The coverage is good in the urban areas. Let's be honest, mostly. But in terms of the government putting at least £1 billion and a lot more with the major networks to roll out rural broadband or coverage or whatever term you want to use it. And they're trumpeting as much as they can any successes. And the only people I'm seeing really, apart from mass sharing, the only people I'm seeing getting any coverage in the UK, and I think this is probably typical across Europe. I can't really talk about states have got different problems purely simply because of the topography. It is Virgin Media O2 or VMO2, and they I mean, I guess in terms of network coverage, they're not the best. Let's be honest, and they've not got great spectrum. They're hoping, without bringing the merger up from Vodafone 3, to pick up some spectrum from that. But yeah, they've just put, if you know anything about Scotland, it's pretty mountainous, not by a lot of country standards, but it's pretty rugged, and it gets quite wild up there when it rains. And one of the very famous beauty spots, which I've actually walked up myself, called Glencoe. Got a lot of history there. They put a great big mast on the top of it, and working with the environmental localists and consultants, and you can't please everybody, let's be honest. They've covered off about 277 not spots and therefore rural communities, which will bring economic benefits and stuff on that. But it's only 4G. That's the first point. And I guess the second point is, but that's acceptable given there's a lot of mountain rescue operates that way. And it gives them a lot better coverage than they've been having, because it's not obviously just the 277 communities, it's all the uninhabited places in between. So I think what's quite interesting for me is not necessarily they've done it, it's a great thing and it's good for our industry and it's the right thing to do, but it's the money of, it's £1 billion from the government. Whether that survives Thursday or not is another question. And then no is the answer. But the fact that they're actually pushing out pretty major press releases and it's getting picked up by the industry trade press. When you're looking at this, who's going, this is 3 or 4 years old news. Now it's a feat of engineering purely because the weather is so bad, and when it gets wild up there, it is wild. But it's not.
How high is it? Is it like?
Yeah, there's a record there, Carl. Is it the highest mast or the tallest mast?
It's the highest mast in the UK. It's Glencoe itself is 1,000 meters, which I guess by a lot of standards is not fantastic, but 1,000 meters high in Scotland with the wind coming in at 100 miles an hour horizontally is quite an experience, believe me. And therefore it has to be fairly rugged engineering, and all that stuff's great. But I still come back to, if you if this is, it's not so much the PR, you PR that as VMO2 with coverage question marks against them, but it's the fact that the trade press is picking it up and running with it, which shows you where we are. That's my point, is it shows you where we are. I'm very positive on the actual what they've done. But I part of me sort of sighs heavily, going, "Is this where we are in the UK?"
Well, sorry. No, I was going to say the fact that it's 4G, not 5G, probably reflects on the fact that they've reused the equipment that they've recovered somewhere else when they replace it with 5G. It's not obviously.
There's a getting stolen joke in there that I won't make because I'm above that. But I think if there's a road higher than there, I think we should do the highest mast. That's the part that I'm thinking, and make it 5G as well.
So you can get up Ben Nevis.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where I am with everything. So at the end of this
week,
is a bit.
Well, we'll have the fastest one by about the end of this month. The fastest mast.
Yeah.
You'll see about that first here. So, but yeah, the highest. There must be a road higher than 1,000 meters in.
Well, there will be.
Well, will be. Ben knows
roads are. The trouble is, there'll be nobody within range to connect to it other than mountain rescue. But we can tick that box if you want to.
So we're gonna go up there and push one of us off the top of the Land Rover
and get mountain rescue to come. Right, okay.
I'm volunteering, Andy.
No, that's very kind, Carl.
My pleasure.
I think we'll call mountain rescue, and then they'll find out that we just had a hangover.
Yeah.
But by that time, we've proven the point.
That weather will clear any hangover, I can tell you.
We'll have been sampling the local delights.
Well, there is a very funny sketch from Billy Connolly, I think, about acid rain that you should check out, because there are no trees for the dogs to wheel up against. But if you want to check that one out, YouTube will have it for you. But on that note, we are driving the 5G Land Rover again, the Land Rovers, tomorrow.
And we shall report back on
next Wednesday. with more news
on 2 shows.
More news and see where we get to over the weekend, and adding another layer of, as I said up front, adding another layer of complexity, which we should be doing. And we're getting most of the elements. We quite quickly evolved within a few weeks to business as usual. So now pushing one or two of the envelope on which we can test rather than the whole end-to-end system, which is great.
And with them on different sites on the same day, I'm going to see who's going to be the first person to say, "Can someone bring me whatever from the other Land Rover?"
Yes,
you can bring it yourself. It's an hour's drive away.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we've wrapped up a wet. I can't believe this time last week, we were set in the sun.
Here it's raining,
and now we're hiding from the rain.
I know.
And we've now got about another 30 meters of Ethernet cable to push through pigeon poo.
Cool. All right then.
We just
everyone
get all the best gigs.
I know.
See you next week.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye, buddy.
Cheers.